You're listening to Leader Tribe, where leaders are made daily, but never in a day. We're talking skills that are relevant, researched, and ready for action. Apply these and you will grow. Here's your daily dose of growth with Dr. Rob McClellan.
Hello, Leader Tribers. How in the world are you? I trust you're doing fantastic today. Hey, it's that Christmas time of year. Did you know I have got all kinds of Christmas music on my phone? I used to always say my iPod, but now on my iPhone, have a whole category of it, and I love singing Christmas songs and getting in that whole merriment. I know a lot of people aren't into it, and that's fine, but I definitely am. So I stay in a good mood all year long, but at Christmas, it's like, what? I just love this time of year. Hope you're doing great. Today, what I want to talk about is something that's going to help you. Hopefully, that's my intent anyway, help you as you get ready for the holiday conversations. You go to holiday parties, you have family gatherings. Anytime somebody is going to ask you, so what do you do? Or how's it going? Or what are you up to these days? Any of those types of questions are unbelievable opportunities if you are prepared for them. And to prepare for them, you have to have what I would like to call your personal one-liner. Your personal one-liner. If you get this one right, people are going to want to continue the conversation. Go, that's interesting. Tell me more. Or really? How long have you been doing that? Or any other myriad of follow-up questions. But if you blow this one, if like, so what are you up to these days? Oh, I'm working for this company that helps other people sell companies. They'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, well, that sounds good. Do you like it? But you can make a compelling one-liner. But anytime you're going to make a compelling one-liner, you have to do one thing. We've talked about this a little bit before on Leader Tribe. Want to go into it a touch more in depth today. Here it is. Are you ready? You have to solve a problem. If you don't solve a problem, you've got nothing to talk about. Let me give you a quick example. Hey, Rob, what do you do? I could say, I own one of those little corner grocery stores. Or I could say, hey, Rob, what do you, and which I don't, by the way, this is a fictitious example, but hey, Rob, what do you do? You know, when you're running late and you're trying to get home and you just have to pick up one or two things at the store, but you don't want to go to some place that's going to way overcharge you. Well, I have a little store on a corner that everyone knows doesn't overcharge people, and we get them in and out as fast as can be. That's a total different answer. It's a one-liner. It's easy, but I'm solving a problem. I'm solving someone's problem when they don't want to be late, they don't have much time, and they don't want to pay a whole bunch of money. And if I said that and they said, well, where's your store? And I told them that it was in their neighborhood, guess where they would start shopping? They would start shopping at that store. So with me, I have a couple of different jobs that I do. I have an unbelievable opportunity as the Director of Leadership Development for a large church in the Atlanta area. It's a church that has about 250 employees, a bunch of pastors, and this is a church that has a full-on leadership growth culture. And that's one of the reasons that it's continued to grow. I think they've grown 28 years in a row without ever going backwards a little bit, which is incredible. It's also a church that has over 140 different nationalities in the church every Sunday. And so, I mean, it's just crazy, right? That you get to go to church in a place that looks like heaven. And the pastor is an unbelievable guy. He's really humble. And so if you're interested in that at all, in a relationship with God or hearing about that church or watching one of the services online, just hit me up at rob@leadertribe.com, rob@leadertribe.com, and I'll give you more information. I love doing that and helping them lead some big projects. But most of my income, my passion is helping people like you and adding value. But most of my income comes from a company that does help with mergers and acquisitions. It's a company that helps business owners who, when they want to sell their business. So, Rob, what do you do? Hey, small business owners, and they've done just an outstanding job serving people, and now they've got this great business, but it's time to sell it. If they're not careful, they're really good at serving their customers, but if they're not careful, they're going to lose millions of dollars that they could have gotten on the sale because they don't know how to sell a business. I help them with that. And all of a sudden, that's something we're talking about. Now, that was too long for a one-liner, so I want to try it again. Are you ready? Here we go. Hey, Rob, what do you do? Hey, when small business owners have to sell their business, they're really good at what they do, but they've never sold a business before. And if they're not careful, they'll lose millions of dollars they could have had in their pocket. So I help them with that. Just something like that. Oh, really? Well, what are you doing with that? Now it's a follow-up conversation. Now we can continue talking. And I love doing that. Can you imagine somebody that you know, a small business owner, and they've poured their life into something. And now it's time to sell their business, and maybe they could get 4 or 5 million for it, and instead they only get 2.9 million for it. Why is that? Because they don't know how to sell a business. They think it's the same as selling a house. They go through sort of a little brokerage process, and it has nothing to do with selling a house. Totally different process. And if it's done professionally, there's actually a 16-step process that you need to take them through. Well, I love helping people do that because I love small business owners and I love people getting everything that they've worked so hard to attain over the years. So that's the problem I solve. Let me ask you a quick question. What's the problem you solve? Let's suppose you're a counselor. Hey, Tom, what do you do? Oh, I'm a counselor. Or, hey, you know when people, all of us in life, we kind of get sidetracked at some point and things start going well, and if we're not careful, we go into depression? Yeah, I help people in that cycle get back to where they're at their best. Wow, okay, I want to talk to that person. Yeah, I counsel people. I'm like, oh, okay, do you like it? Did you see the difference there? One is solving a problem. One's just telling what they do. Friends, listen to me. You solve a problem. If you're working anywhere, you solve somebody's problem. You could say, well, I'm just a secretary. Well, there's no such thing as just as. You know, when executives in a company, they start doing so much so fast, they kind of get it all confused. I serve them by helping them get it right every single time and making sure they have all the documents they need. Isn't that a lot better than saying I'm a secretary? Because you said, here's a problem, and I solve that problem. Hey, you know where I learned all of this? There's a 16-minute video. It is in the show notes today. It's by a guy named Donald Miller. And Donald Miller, when I heard this, I thought, oh my goodness, I have missed out on so many opportunities in my life because I didn't know this little principle. And so, friends, here's the deal. You just go to leadertribe.com/podcast. I believe this is actually, you know what? I think this is episode number 200. And so go to episode 200 of the Leader Tribe podcast. When you click on that or go to iTunes, wherever you're listening to this, if you go, there's always a place where you can get to the show notes. And when you get to the show notes today, you will have that link to that 16-minute video. Hey, this is Dr. Rob. I hope you enjoyed it. More later in the week. And for now, much love. I'm out. Hello, Leader Tribers. How in the world are you? Dr. Rob here. Hey, I got to get right into the story that we're talking about today. 3 lessons I learned from being in an active shooter situation in a mall 5 days ago in Florida. Now, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Are you ready for this? There was no shooter, but we didn't know that at the time. Let me set this up for you. We're walking down the mall, and this is the Sawgrass Mills Outlet Mall. It's the largest outlet mall in the world. I had to be down in Fort Lauderdale for some business, so my wife went with me and had finished up business on that day and said, hey, let's go over. It's supposed to be the largest outlet mall, you know. Let's go over and see how crazy it is right before Christmas. So we go over there. We're walking through this part of it, and all of a sudden all the alarms go off, like the fire alarms, you know, and things like that. And so there's buzzing and, you know, some of the lights are going out and all this kind of stuff. And we're still walking along. Nothing's happening. They're not saying it's a fire or get out. Although I notice all the shop owners, they go right up to, you know, the entry to the mall from their store where all those big metal gates are and stuff. And they're kind of standing there. And so we walk, I don't know, probably another 50 feet, 60 feet. And all of a sudden there's this loud noises, banging, and a ton of people, like 1,000 people running around the corner screaming, someone yelling shooter, and all these people, everyone just turns and starts running, going crazy. And I am talking about running over people in wheelchairs getting smashed, you know, and people just going crazy in that moment. Here's what's interesting. I've already had that conversation with my family. And I said, in a situation like that, depending on the situation, you get away from whatever's going on and I'm going to go to it. And I don't have this hero complex or anything like that. But what happens in these situations, I remember when I was watching Columbine. And remember at Columbine, they're showing it live on TV. I'm about 45 minutes away from Columbine High School in Denver at the time in Colorado Springs. We're watching this live, and the reporters, and they're saying, you can still hear guns being fired inside. All the police are outside, and they're surrounding the school, but no one was going in. I was so angry. I thought, give me a gun. I'll go in there. Somebody's got to stop that. And there's just something inside of me that says, yeah, it might be dangerous, but you don't know until you can get in there. So give me whatever bulletproof thing you got and just let me go, if nothing else, peek around a corner and run out. But sitting outside, that's just not an option for me because somebody's son or daughter or wife or husband is getting killed. So I've always kind of had this, in a situation, I don't want to panic. Here's what I'm going to do. Now, real quick, I want to do the very first lesson here. I learned 3 lessons from this thing. And number 1 is don't panic. And guess what? I didn't. And you can train yourself not to panic. I have taught my daughter this, and it's come into use for her in her life. I don't care if it's a big car wreck or something, catastrophe that happens, but when everyone else is around you is going crazy, you have a choice to make. You can choose not to panic. I'm being serious. Listen to me. You can make a choice not to panic right then and that time. You know how I learned this? It's because it was in the California Highway Patrol. What they did is I found if a car went off a road into a lake, and the lake is in the wintertime and it's like a frozen lake and the car's starting to sink. If you're ever in a boat that capsizes in the middle of a lake and then people panic, they're like, what? And they try to dog paddle and swim as fast as they can. They end up dying because they use all of their energy. And so they did this research, and basically here's what they found out. In that situation, if you will choose not to panic, as your car is going down into the water, you know what you do? You go ahead and roll the windows down. You let all that cold water come pouring into your car. You take your seatbelt off, and then once the car is totally full of water, then it will start to sink more. That's when you swim out the window and get to the top. When you get to the top, you don't freak out and go, and start dog paddling. What you do is if you can just train in your mind, wait, just tread water, be patient for about 30 seconds. What happens is your body will adjust even to that super cold water, and then you can more calmly swim to the shore. But if you just try to get up and start dog paddling and swimming as fast as you can, your adrenaline is going so high that you make horrible decisions. And so anytime you're in a situation like this, you don't panic. I want to tell you, I didn't panic. And here's what's cool. My wife didn't either. So in the midst of all these people and screaming and running by, immediately I took her and we went into this one store, and people are running all the way through the store. Clothes are flying, shoes are flying, running through to the back of the store, where the manager is, and then out to the back way of the store. As people are doing that, I got my wife towards the back, and then I want to start going back towards the front of the store to go find out where the shooter is and how I can intervene somehow. Here's one of the things I learned about myself in that situation, though. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, well, what if the shooter comes into this store? Is my wife safe enough here? And so I went back to check on my wife to make sure she was going to be safe enough, saying, hey, if I'm a shooter and I come in here, who are the people I'm going to shoot and where can I make sure? And it just surprised me that I had this mama bear complex, that if my wife or my daughter were in that situation, I was more protective of them than I knew that I was. And I think that was actually a negative. Now, I'm not going to say it's bad to protect your wife or your child. Please hear me. But it certainly took me another 20, 30 seconds back there until I said, okay, you do this. And she said, I'm heading out the back. I said, great. Then I turned around, start walking back through the store. I called my daughter really quick, or I texted her, I think. And I told her, no, I think I did call her. Told her I was in an active shooter situation in a mall. Mom was safe, and I'm going back in. Pray for me. And she just said, Dad, that's not your battle. And I said, yeah, you know your dad, though. I'm not going to sit there and let someone else's kids get shot or anything. And so, again, I wasn't planning on going and getting shot. I was going to get in and figure out strategic because I needed somebody. Here's what's funny is I'm going back through the store. They're trying to shut all the gates, and the people are yelling at me, sir, you can't do that. Sir, you can't. And I mean, this one store manager is just yelling at me. I command you to go out the back, and getting all in my face. And I just kind of said, hey, ma'am, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but you can't tell me what to do in this situation. So call the police on me, do what you need to do, but I'm going. And I started heading back out into the mall at that point. Well, she's like, well, I don't care. I'm the store manager. Can you imagine somebody? She was so panicked. She's like, I'm the store manager, so I'm in control during this shooting situation. It was the funniest thing to me. I didn't take time to laugh at it, but I just kind of thought, oh, that's sweet. But I've got a job to do at this point. And so as soon as she realized I couldn't do it, she had shut down, locked everything else. She went flying out the back. And then as I'm re-entering the mall, all of a sudden this voice comes over and says, false alarm, there is no shooter. Well, it ends up that there had been an alarm pulled and there was some type of other emergency. But when people started running, somebody thought they saw a gun, they started yelling. And so here's what the good part is. I got to see exactly how I would react in that situation. Okay, here's lesson number 3. So lesson number 1, don't panic. You can choose not to panic. You can train yourself not to panic. All of a sudden, everything's going to hell around you. You say, stop, I am choosing not to panic. I don't care. Just take 5 seconds. Just think of this. Shots are being fired. Big trauma situation. 5 seconds. Okay, I'm going to settle down. I'm going to choose not to panic. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to make an assessment of this. Okay, that's all. That's 5 seconds, but nobody else is giving. It's only going to take 5 or 10 seconds. Choose not to panic. Number 2 was my loyalty ended up costing me. I should just trust my wife. As soon as I saw she was under control, she wasn't panicking to get out the back, but be willing to turn around quicker and do the things that I need to do. And then here's the number 3 thing that I learned. In that situation, people freak out. I was really sort of ashamed of myself because at one point where I'm running through the store or jogging through the store, just making sure my wife was okay, getting to the back, and there's people in wheelchairs, and in my mind I think somebody needs to go help them, and they're going really slow, and that's me. I should have gone over and helped them, but I'm making a conscious choice not to, thinking, no, get her to safety, and then I'm going to save a lot more than just people in wheelchairs. And I mean, it's just this conscious going back and forth. What should you do? What should you not do? And you're beating yourself up, but you have to make decisions. Here's the final one. Are you ready? Lesson number 3, make a decision. There were some people who couldn't make a decision where to run, what to do, things like that. They were paralyzed in their fear. Hey, if it's ever a situation like that, just remind yourself, don't panic. Now, make a decision. Might be a good one, might be a bad one. If you've chosen not to panic, it is probably a good one, but make a decision and do it. Thankfully, I did, but I'm just telling you, there was all these things in my head going back and forth trying to get me to not make a decision, and I could totally see how somebody won't panic. Okay, totally different leadership lesson today, right? But I was in that situation, and I've thought about it 50 times since then and thought, okay, what lessons did I learn, and how can I share them with the Leader Tribe? So tomorrow we'll go back to our normal leadership lessons. I'm sorry this episode was a little longer than most. This is Dr. Rob. Much love. I'm out. Hello, Leader Tribers. How in the world are you? Dr. Rob here. Trust you're doing fantastic today. This is being recorded the week before Christmas. I think it's the week before Christmas. Yep, definitely the week before Christmas. And I hope everyone out there is having a very Merry Christmas. We'll have a fantastic New Year. So happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, and whatever else you're celebrating out there. I hope you have the best one ever. Hey, today, a great small episode. If you've never heard of emotional intelligence, all you got to do is look it up, or I've talked about it a ton on here because it is a fantastic, it's one of the most underutilized leadership interventions out there, or ways for you and I to mature if we will work on our emotional intelligence. Well, I came across an article recently. It's Harvard Business Review. It was actually from this past summer. It's by the father of emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman. Again, I've talked about him a ton. Just go to leadertribe.com, look at the blogs, put in Goleman, Goleman, or emotional intelligence, and you'll see some really quick, easy to read applications, things that you can make. And that's what I like to do is, as you know, is keep it down and dirty and easy to apply. Well, I came across this article and I loved it. Here it is. Ready? Boost your emotional intelligence with these 3 questions. And it's by Daniel Goleman and Michelle Navarez, who often writes with him and is fantastic in that whole realm as well. So here we go. What are the 3 questions and how are these going to boost your or my emotional intelligence? First question, what are the differences between how you see yourself and how others see you? Hey, I'm sure I'll talk about this more in the future, but recently I had a friend who wanted to talk to me about a couple of things. And it's one of those uncomfortable situations where they're saying, I think I see these things in your life, and really kind of focused on 2 things. One of them I was pretty sure wasn't true, but I wanted to hear him out, listen, ask a few questions, not be defensive, and I didn't. I didn't tell him that's not true, but I took it all. And guess what? Good news, it wasn't true. The second one, I thought it wasn't true either, and I thought, don't act offensive, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to test myself in this area and kind of see tomorrow, is that really happening? And so I was very careful to start watching for it. Well, guess what? It happened 3 times before noon the next day. Friends, I wanted to go outside and just barf. I'm serious. I was so sick to my stomach. I thought, oh my goodness, this is a huge blind spot in my life that I wasn't even aware of. And I was so ashamed because I teach self-awareness and other things, and it's just something that I had missed. And one of the things that you have to have for self-awareness is good friends who will love you enough to say something. And I always want to be the kind of friend, employer, employee, or others who will just love people enough to say something. Because most people, they won't say something to the person who's offending. Instead, they'll go out in the parking lot and talk to somebody, which is even worse. And so anyway, love someone enough to say something. But the first question to boost yours is, what are the differences between how you see yourself and how others see you? And this is really the first step. And it should be that way with all learning, is to get a sense how your self-perception, how you see yourself, differs from your reputation or how other people. Now, all of us know there's some areas where we have a decent reputation, but we're really not that good in that particular area. And so those would be differences in how other people see us, but there might be some areas that you're not aware of. And so find a friend, find a loved one, somebody who will love you enough to say something and say, I'm trying to grow in my self-awareness. Where are some areas where I might see myself one way, but other people see me a different way, or you're not convinced I'm seeing myself correctly? Are there some of those, or could you think of some? I don't know how you asked that question, but you got to figure it out. Here's what was surprising to me is the number 2 question. The number 2 question that they asked was this: what matters to you? Because if it's an area that you discover and it's not really that important to you, it might be more important to someone else, you're probably not going to have the inner motivation you need to work on it. If it's not that important, it's one of those, and all God's people said, who cares, right? I mean, seriously. And if it's not going to matter that much to you. And so this is something where we've talked about before, sort of core values and other things, but what's really important to you? Here's exactly how the article reads. When you get your feedback from an assessment or your coach, let that information inform you what you want to improve, but consider what your goals are, how you want to get better at what you do now, or where you want to go in the future. When it comes to cultivating strengths and emotional intelligence, you're at a huge disadvantage if you're only interested because a colleague, your boss, or someone in HR said you should be. So if somebody else is saying, hey, you really need to improve in this, and you're really not interested in it, it's probably not going to work. So very first question, once again, what are the differences between how you see yourself and how others see you? Number 2 question, what matters to you? And then the number 3 and final question, what changes will you make to achieve those goals? If something does matter to you and you think, oh yeah, I got to change that, or I got to work on that, or yeah, I got to get better in that area. Any of those answers, listen to me. This is Dr. Rob. I love you. I love you enough to say something. Are you ready? That won't work. That will not work. I've got to change in that area. I got to think more about that. I've got to do something about that. Those don't matter. Those are all sort of thoughts, or you're letting yourself off the hook. Here's the question. What changes will you make in order to achieve those goals? And let me tell you around here, if you make some huge changes, they probably won't stick. And so around here all the time we talk about don't take baby steps. They're too big. Take micro steps. Get 1% better. If I'm going to be just one baby step better in that area at the end of the week, what's that going to look like? And then if I want to get even better the next week and better, you do that for 20 weeks in a row, I'll guarantee you're going to grow and your brain won't fight you because it's easy. what happens is when you're trying to change a lot, your brain fights you. And all of a sudden you say, I've got to go on a diet and I've got to lose a pound a week for the next 20 weeks. That's just probably not going to happen. But if you say, I'm going to choose to eat one less dessert and have one more scoop of veggies this week, that's a great way to start. And then the next week, go a little more, and you're going to start to see the changes you want. 3 questions to boost your emotional intelligence. Here they are one more time. The very first question is, in fact, what are the differences between how you see yourself and how others see you? Number 2, what matters to you? Because if it doesn't matter to you, you're probably not going to work on it. And then number 3, what changes will you make? Not thinking about it, actual behavioral changes will you make to achieve these goals? Great little article. I hope you enjoyed it. The article itself is in the show notes. And until tomorrow, this is Dr. Rob. Much love. I'm out. Hello, friends. How in the world are you? Dr. Rob here. Trust you're doing fantastic today. Hey, it's the Thursday before Christmas. And so as you are listening to this podcast, everything fun is just around the corner. So here's basically how this is going to go down. I've got a little treat for you today. It's from an article in Harvard Business Review. It actually wasn't in the magazine. It was on the Harvard blog that I thought, I've been saving it. Just thought it'd be perfect for this time of year. So are you ready for it? Here is the title of that article: How to Email Someone You Haven't Talked to in Forever. And so that's on the Harvard Business blog. It's under networking. Its author is Rebecca Zucker, Zucker. And so you can find the article, or you can go to the show notes. I'll have a link to it in there. I just thought it was fantastic. Why? Because around Christmas time, we have a little more time. You'll meet with some friends and, hey, have you heard from Gary? Or, hey, what's Paul up to these days? When's the last time you talked to Michael? And you think, dang, I haven't talked to him probably since grad school. So it's been over 10 years or whatever the situation is. But you'd love to be in contact, and you're asking people, have you heard from somebody? Now, more often than that, somebody will ask you for a favor, or you'll have a need in your life and you'll think, dang, I know a guy who was awesome at that, but I haven't talked to him in 12 years. And so there's no chance I can ask him because I don't want to be that guy, the one who he hasn't heard from you in 12 years. Now all of a sudden you're saying, hey, can you do me a favor? And so even if it's that type of situation, Rebecca Zucker has a couple of hints here, things to do, how to reconnect. But first she points out that the research always shows, and some significant research showing, that people that have the most robust networks lead to better opportunities, and they have more opportunities in their career and their family and other things. Often on here, I've talked about my friend Travis Chappell and the buildyournetwork.co and his podcast. He is all about networking. He's one of my go-to guys when it comes to that. But forever, probably before Travis was born, and when I used to teach grad school and business classes all the time, I would start off several classes each year by saying, what is the key to life when it comes to your business success? Anybody, what's the key to life? And people are saying, integrity, job opportunities, doing good work, confidence. And the answer was no. Networking is the key to life. Out of school, if you have a good resume and you do really well in school or grad school, that's going to help you land that first job. But everything after that first job is how well you did in the first job and who you know. And if you just know people and you're asking them for favors, probably not going to go very well for you. But if you're the type of person who always wants to add value and help people and be there for them, you having a network is going to serve you well the rest of your life. And so here are the tips from the article. Once again, the article is entitled How to Email Someone You Haven't Talked to in Forever. Same thing, how to call someone. And the very first one is shift your perspective, because the last thing any of us wants to do is to, look out, be seen as the kind of person who all of a sudden, I need something I haven't talked to in forever. But she says, no, shift your perspective. Hey, guess what? You haven't talked to the person in 10 plus years, right? But they haven't reached out to you either. And so she said, if you're emailing, the two things that you can do that get return emails, the two subject lines, number one is if it's just a casual relationship or a friendship, you could put in there a blast from the past. Or if it's a little more formal of a relationship, you can just have one word up there, reconnecting. that she said about 90% of those emails with either subject line, they're going to get returned. And so just acknowledge, hey, this isn't just me. They haven't connected either. And so I'm trying to initiate this. And 90% of the people are going to be super happy that you took the effort to do that. Number two, you just acknowledge the absence of contact. It's an elephant in the room, right? So you might as well ease the awkwardness of that one. You might use a little humor or something else, just saying, if it's a friend, dude, we haven't talked in forever. How in the world are you? And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to really pay attention to your tone. Now, let's suppose it's not just a casual friend and you're not going to call the person dude. Well, if it's a more formal friend, you could say, Mr. Johnson, Rob McClellan checking back in. We have not talked in such a long time. I've thought about you over the years, but I think it's time for us to reconnect. Just something like that that's acknowledging it. And then pay attention to your tone, because if you're going to make a request of somebody and you sound desperate or demanding in any way, it's probably going to be denied and ignored, and they're not going to think well of you in the future. And then number 3 thing that she says, always give them an out. Hey, I understand that you might be super busy. This might not work for you. And, or I know this came out of the blue and I'm not sure what your life entails at this point. And so this might not be the type of thing you're able to help with. Always something like that. Though what she said in the article was just that, hey, I'm sure you're very busy. So if this is not a good time for you, or if you don't feel like you know this person well enough to make an introduction, I completely understand. And in that situation, she's talking about if you would like this person to introduce you to somebody that they know. And then next she says, offer to reciprocate. Well, that's what I would do. I would start off by trying to add value in some way. But always, 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 you want to be the person adding the most value in every relationship that you're in. Why? Just because that's what nice people do. It's really fun. Somebody described me in 3 words, and they were really a nice person. They said, sweet was one of them, nice was another one, and leader was another one. I thought, you know what? If I can be the kind of person who is described in life as sweet guy or a nice guy and a leader, I can die and go to heaven happy. And so I want to be a sweet guy and a nice guy. Well, guess what? You don't get that from being demanding and not being willing to serve other people. And so be a sweet person, be a nice person. I'm just telling you, when somebody said that, I don't know, it was probably a couple of months ago, but it really made me feel good, and I want to do more of that. And so feel good about yourself, be a sweet, nice person, and then finally show appreciation, regardless of whether the contact is able to help you out or not, or if you're just kind of re-engaging in the relationship. I'm so thankful that we were able to reconnect. I've thought of you so many times. I'm thankful for the way that you had input for my life in the past. If it's appropriate, you can send them, she recommends in the article, maybe a little gift card or a bottle of wine or a little favor of some type. I used to say, hey, I wish I could go to Starbucks with you. I can't, but here's a little $10 Starbucks card just to say thanks. Anything like that is just being sweet, be nice about it. And then stay in contact. You don't want it to be another 10 years. Finally, write them a follow-up. I mean, it might be the next Easter and say, guess what? I show up in your life on the holidays, Christmas and Easter. Just kidding, but wanted to check in with you. Recently had the opportunity to talk to one of our other friends, blah, 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 something like that, but stay connected. Now, let me go through these real quick because I want to challenge you. Here at Leader Tribe, we grow as leaders. And so here's the challenge. It's the Christmas challenge. We'll call it that. Here's the challenge, the article, how to email someone you haven't talked to in forever or to talk to them. And number 1 thing to do, remember, shift your perspective. It's not just you. This person hasn't talked to you either. And so just kind of have fun with that. If it's an email or even if it's on the phone, if they say hello, I go, hi, this is Rob McClellan. How's that for a blast from the past? And then you're going to hear, Robster, if it was one of my college buddies, or Rob, what in the world are you doing? Or you can just say, hi, Mr. Johnson. My name's Rob McClellan. I don't know if you remember me, but I'd like to reconnect. And, 9 times out of 10, of course, they're going to say, of course I remember you, because if you remember their name, I'm sure they remember yours. Pay attention to your tone. You don't be demanding. You always give the person an out. I understand if this doesn't work or it might not be a good time to catch up. Give them an out so they can take it. They usually won't, but that's what nice people do. and then offer to reciprocate any way you can, and then drop them a note in the mail, something even if it's, an email 3 days later, and it's just saying, hey, Mr. Johnson, I was just thinking about our phone call again or our email exchange the other day, and I'm really thankful for it. Thanks again for reconnecting, Rob. Something like that, where you're going to get something back. Hey, no problem, Rob. Anytime. Again, it was great to hear from. And so you're dialed back in. That's what you want. So there you go. Here is the challenge. Are you ready? Reconnect with somebody. Reconnect with somebody. That's the challenge from Dr. Rob to you. Hey, speaking of that, have a very Merry Christmas. And there will be a couple Christmas episodes, some episodes next week. But until then, much love. I'm out.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Leader Tribe podcast. For all the free bonuses and growth articles, join the tribe. It's free. Just head on over to leadertribe.com to sign up, and we'll see you tomorrow for another daily dose of growth.